Welcome, everybody. Today, I am thrilled to welcome back Jennifer Spencer, a former VP of marketing turned entrepreneur, intuition coach, and certified sound healer, and an intuitive medium with over 120,000 followers. In this episode, we're going to take a deep dive into how intuition strengthens during uncertainty, from burnout, grief, and divorce to career transitions and empty nesting, and how listening to your own body and slowing down can reveal the right next step. We're also going to unpack fear versus intuition, money and investing in yourself, and simple practices like energy audits and how stillness can actually refill your emotional bank account. Stay with us because this conversation might just change how you make your next big decision. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and tell us about a moment in your life where following your intuition was the right thing to do. Hello, Jennifer.
Hi.
Welcome to the show. I have to say, I don't even want to use the word excited. I've been anticipating this show since we had lunch, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago. And we got on this topic. And so our audience knows today we're going to be talking about 5 ways to use your intuition during life transitions. And boy, oh boy, we've got lots of life transitions going on right now. So, Jennifer, why don't you start by just I know you've been on the show before, so welcome back.
Thank
But
you.
just why don't you give the audience a little overview of your background and we'll hop right into the first question.
Perfect. So, I am a spiritual medium and an intuitive coach. And if you had asked me this question 5 years ago, I would have told you I was a VP in marketing. That was my identity. And so, one of the things that I think has been really powerful about our friendship and connection over the last few years is that we have watched each other to going through pretty big changes in our identity, in our career, and in how we want to show up in the world. And I spent the last 15 years in marketing roles over the course of my career and thought that that was what I was supposed to do. So I got to this place when I was 34, had got my VP title, and thought, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I realized at that point, when I'm sitting in that corner office crying, I realized that's not actually what I want to do in this lifetime. And so from that time, I went through a spiritual awakening and started to really go through some of the patterns and thought processes that were holding me in that place. And now, fast forward to 2026, I am proudly a spiritual medium, intuitive coach. I help women to really step into their purpose and to ultimately live the life that we are here to live. I think that there's so many of us playing small because we don't believe that we can do it. And that moment of change is the moment that we have to keep riding the wave and get to the other side. So I do that. And then my partner, Steve, and I run Pause and Expand, which is a wellness company that offers sound baths and visualizations to companies.
Yeah, and when's the moment you realized that your intuition was something that you could use strategically? I mean, going from VP of marketing
Yeah.
in the corporate world, and that it's a big change, right?
Yeah.
It's a very big change. So when did you realize that you were going to use your intuition as part of your life skill sets, your career?
Yeah,
And
yeah. So, I think one of the things that has always been interesting about this word intuition is that it's been perceived as this mystical concept.
yeah,
And because we can't always put fact to it, we don't always know why we feel the way we do until sometimes later. Logic has always been the thing that we have leaned on because it can give us answers. It's cause and effect. If this happens, this will happen. And so when I look back on my career and all the little pivots I've taken along the way, I realized that my intuition was actually always part of that process, but it was really with me in those bigger inflection points. So when I went to my first spiritual retreat after I left my VP title at the Body Shop, I remember sitting there by the ocean and thinking, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but I know I'm not supposed to do that. And that was a really big moment for me. And then as I continued to evolve and took smaller contract roles in marketing, as I pivoted away and started to step more into my gifts as a medium, as an intuitive coach, the work we do at Pause and Expand, it was always these little moments where the intuition would spark. And I had a choice in that moment to decide, am I going to trust this, or am I going to go back to logic and talk myself out of what I am being asked to take a risk in this moment?
It's so interesting. When we had this conversation at lunch a few weeks ago, one of the things that I shared with you was that what I had been noticing, because in our work, we are working with executives and leaders, coaching and
Yeah.
all of the fun things and learning and development and training and all the rest of it. So we're really hands on with people every single day and hearing their stories. And the one thing I kept hearing over and over again was the weight of not only the workload
Yeah.
and but the weight of how things were changing, and if people were fitting into where they were at in their lives, or
Yeah.
what the new world was going to look like, whether it was worried about AI or they just worried about, was their job going to be there tomorrow. And how so many people also, we learn so many people are going through transitions, whether it's just, it's simple transitions, just moving, or just, kids exiting a house, divorce, like just the regular stuff, but it seems to be amplified. And
Yeah.
part of the conversation that we talked about was that, how do we use our intuition
Yeah.
to make decisions in life and to
Yeah.
support the changes that we have to make in our life, or the transitions that are happening to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. You know, one
Well,
one of the things.
you came up with five. so,
Exactly.
so
Well,
give us the first one.
yeah, I mean, I think the first one is really about this concept that oftentimes our intuition is asking us to become someone new, not just do something new, right? And so that shift, when I look at my career, it required me to let go of an identity that I was holding. So I had worked my whole career to be this VP of marketing, and that was ingrained in me, that was my worth. That was what actually made me valuable on this planet. And when you start to get that signal or that pull towards something that doesn't feel normal, it feels scary. And so you ask yourself this question, am I resisting it because it's wrong, like it's not the right move? Or is it because it's just not who I am yet and I have to go through that discomfort of not totally knowing? So I think that big part of the journey is like, we have to grieve as we move into our intuition. There's a grief process that has to happen of letting go of who we thought we were to become who we are. And your intuition is always guiding you to who you're supposed to be. But we resist because the human experience is, I want to be safe. I want to make sure that nothing bad's going to happen. And I'm going to stay protected in my little box that I've always known. And nothing's going to take me out of that box. And so
Yeah.
I think it's really about starting to realize that when your intuition is asking you to become someone new, you got to trust that. And I mean, you have this in your career, right? When you left what you knew and you started to do more of this work and more of what you really knew that you were here to do, there's a scary process in between there where you feel like you're in the void of nothing, right?
Well, and I think I explained to you a situation in my life where it's kind of guided me. I was very young and I lost a business, and I, I was a single mother at the time, and it was very
Mm,
scary. And I knew that I had to do something completely different.
yeah.
And my girlfriend came over with a bottle of wine, and I got the glasses of wine, and she said to me, "When one door opens," and I said, "Please don't say that to me." And I just like, I don't want to hear the bullshit around when one door opens, when one door closes, the other one opens. And she
Yeah.
said, no, Sandra, you haven't heard the whole, the whole analogy around this. It's when one door closes, it's when you're in the hallways of indecision and deciding which door to walk through
Yeah.
before you get to climb through, that new opportunity. And she says, "You happen to be in the hallways right now, and it's a real bitch." And so, I
Exactly.
feel like so many times I've been stuck in the hallways of
Yeah.
knowing that I need to change, but not knowing what to do. So my question to you is, how do you help women and grieving for that person, right? How do you
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
women grieve for that, that identity that they're leaving behind, and still they're able to move forward?
Yeah. Yeah. I used to probably have a more complicated answer to this, but as I keep learning and evolving and working with more women, what I'm learning is you have to feel it, right? You have to be willing to feel the discomfort of who you thought you were. And, when I look at my career, a lot of who I thought I was supposed to be was not what I wanted. It was what other people wanted. So I grew up in a family of, high achievers, people that had identities that were very clear. My mom was a teacher, my dad was an accountant. And so those roles are very defined. You don't step out of that box. You're amazing at what you do, but that's your career path your entire life. And so when I started to pivot into my entrepreneurship, no one in my family had ever done that before. And so that was a really big moment where I had to grieve the loss of, well, what if I don't fit into my family anymore? What if they don't approve of me? Or what if they think I'm going to be poor? Right. So there's a big feeling there that you've got to allow yourself to move through, because I think of it like, you built this tower and this big castle. And if that castle starts to fall down, maybe it's being rebuilt because that's actually who you're supposed to be. And maybe it was built because of some value that you maybe don't believe in now in where you're at in your life today.
Wow, that is really powerful. So tell me, number two. What's number two?
Yeah, so it kind of dovetails into the idea of feeling. It's really this concept of learning to read your body as a source of information, not just the sensation. So the idea here is that your body is already speaking to you in this moment. When we were having lunch together and we decided we wanted to have this conversation, I could feel excitement and like chills going through my body. I could feel the buzzing in my body. And that was my yes, right? That's the way my body tells me yes. There's other ways that my body tells me no. So I can feel like a constriction or a tightening in my heart or my chest. And that's usually often the way my body is saying, no, like maybe reconsider or wait until you've figured it out. And so I think one of the other things with this is like, especially when you're going through change, your body is going to start speaking to you. And if you don't listen, it's going to scream at you. So, a lot of women who are making these pivots, especially in their 40s, 50s, we're also going through perimenopause, menopause. We're
Yeah.
going through all these changes in the body. And this is the time that you are meant to listen. So, it can look many ways, but the body is speaking to you, and that's how your intuition comes through. And so it's really important to try to get quiet and hear what your body is actually saying.
It's interesting that you say that, because if you don't listen to your body, it will it will
Yeah.
give you some sort of indication. And I
Yeah.
know that 3 years ago, I wasn't listening to my body. There was all kinds of stuff in my work that was going on. My mother was dying. My mother-in-law was in hospital. My son was ill. And I just lost my intuition. I didn't know which way was up and which way was down. And I stopped listening to what I should be doing and following my intuition. And I ended up with this really weird condition with my eyes. And
Oh, wow.
it was horrible. And until I started stepping back from everything and started listening to what I needed and what I thought and I didn't know I didn't want to what I wanted to do in my career. I was afraid. I was grieving for my mother, my mother-in-law. I was worried about my son and all of these things, but I never once stopped to sort of, listen to my body
Yeah.
and what my
Yeah.
body was telling me to do to take that time. So what does it actually look like in practice? How do you teach women to tell the difference really between their fear, which I was in a fear mode, and
Yeah.
as opposed to intuition in the body?
Yeah.
How do we get to that place?
I mean, it's a great question. It's honestly still something that try to figure out every single day because it's hard to distinguish the two. The truth is that fear and intuition actually feel very similar. It's when you're in a state of fear, you get a feeling. When you're in your intuition, you get a feeling. And sometimes those can be very close to each other. And so one of the things that I'll always try to do is slow down. So, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to look always like meditation or this, big practice you're doing. But fear is usually very loud and it's urgent. It's like the voice of your critic that's going, Sandra, you better figure this out because if you don't figure it out, you're gonna be on the wrong path and then you're gonna be broke and have no money and you're not gonna be an amazing daughter and all the things that you need to do. Your intuition is probably sitting right underneath that fear saying, Sandra, you're doing a lot right now and your body's probably speaking to you. So maybe this is the time to kind of slow down and go for, I know walking for you is a big thing for you. It's like,
Yeah, it's
that's when you can
huge.
get the clarity, right? And so I think for each of us, Steve and I teach meditation to companies all the time. There's this misconception about what it is. And if you actually just find your way to slow down, you start to realize the body will speak to you and it will start to guide you where you're meant to go.
It's so interesting, and just for the audience, when I was in the midst of all of that, and I, I got this crazy condition, and I ended up taking a course in
Oh, wow.
meditation.
Yes. I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
that.
So that I wasn't supposed to go to. It was actually
Yes.
it was actually professionals. There was a psychiatrist there that they could bring to. It was psychiatrist. There was a doctor. There was all these different people. I joined up for the wrong course. They were going to bring it to their practice, and it ended up being quite intense meditation. It was, and they were getting certified to actually bring it into their practice. And I was going to leave after the first week, and it was I think it was an 8-week course,
Yeah.
3 hours a week in class, and then probably. But it changed my life. I ended
Yeah.
up teaching the business part of the course because the practitioner asked me to do it because she said, you know more about business than I do and how
Yeah.
to, bring that. But during that time, I had met you. I'd been introduced to you twice.
Yep.
And in the business that I was in with the coaching, I said, no, I didn't want to. It's
Sandra
not that I didn't
ghosted
want to
me and
meet
rejected
you.
me twice before she's like, wait, maybe we should
I,
talk.
I rejected you twice because I thought, meditation and all of these things. And during that time, and then you came to an event that I was at,
Yeah.
and that was but but as soon as I met you, and that's when my intuition was opening up again, and I'd gone through the meditation course, and as soon as I met you, and I knew that there was a connection, and I was still struggling with my corporate, very
Yep.
corporate in the box personality. So I do believe that, when you get stuck in
Yeah.
your body, that you have to do something different. And I also think that every religion that ever was or every kind
Yeah.
of practice tells you silence, pause, step
Yeah.
out, take time back. Any philosopher will tell you that. And
Yeah.
yet it's the last thing we do in this world that we're living in right now. We tend to, what else can I do?
What can I
Right?
do? How can I make this go away? You know what's also funny is I was just thinking as you were talking there. It's interesting again, the body will be very clear about what it's trying to tell you. So I find it very interesting that you were trying to find your way, literally see forward. And then you get this thing with your eyes. And actually, what was being asked is to come into your inner vision, not your outer vision, right? But the body will be very direct. So a lot of people that have, if you have sudden heart problems or certain things that happen, it's to do with some sort of grief that you're feeling in your heart, right? And so it's very connected. The body is very intuitive. And so when we don't listen, it will start to yell at us until we do listen.
Well, yeah, and it does yell. That's the whole thing. It'll give you a little bit of a nudge on the shoulder. But this lasted 3 months where my eyes were literally so red, so swollen that
Wow.
if I was in an elevator, I couldn't wear makeup, I couldn't wear products. There's nothing that could cover this. You just had to, it was out of control so much so when I took my glasses off at the hospital, they went, "Oh my God, what happened?"
Wow. And you're
It
like, well,
was,
I'm just working through some grief right now that I need to let go
yeah.
of and find my way.
I went away. I took time out for 3 weeks and I took this course. So I think this is really listening to the body is really important, or else it will smack you up the side of the head. And in my
Yep.
case, my eyes. Okay, so
Exactly.
what's, yeah, so, and you're right about insight. So tell me about number 3. I hope you're really enjoying this episode of Women on Wisdom. We are sponsored by TalentWise Collective. And my question for you today is, what's your organization doing to drive the equitable change we desperately need? TalentWise Collective supports organizations to empower their employees with services and programs such as coaching and transformative workshops and my interactive talk, Bridging the Gap, which is designed for immediate and impactful action. Reach out to Connect TWC at talentwisecollective.com. That's Connect TWC at talentwisecollective.com. Let's build a truly equitable future together. What is the
Okay.
third thing that
So this
women
is
can
this is a
do?
big
Or
one. This is a big one right in the middle. It's about money, right? So noticing, and this is actually part of what started our conversation, is noticing when money is being used as the reason to stay stuck. So noticing and being able to differentiate again the fear and the intuition around where are you future projecting that you're going to be broke and have no money and not be able to make pay your bills and do what you love and have a great career. And when it's your intuition just saying, just trust me, if you follow this path that I'm laying out for you, you will actually be in a better position financially than you ever were when you were doing what you did before. Because one of the biggest realizations I've had is that, and this is going a little bit woo woo, but money is actually an energy, right? So who created money? It was a thing that was decided that if I give you this, you will get this in return.
yeah,
And when you look at money as more of an energy, it's about giving and it's about receiving. And we have all these conditions on money, like salary and benefits and security and all these things that make us safe. But when you actually start to peel that back, you realize that what if money is connected to doing what you love and also then using logic to make it make sense after? So, what we start to do is, I see this all the time. We've talked about this. You have this idea, well, I'd really love to leave my corporate career and become a life coach or to start doing my own consulting practice. And then what happens? The voice of money comes in and goes, no, you can't. You're an idiot. You'll never make money. You'll never be able to do it. And that mostly stops people from ever leaving and doing what they want to do. So it's becoming aware of that relationship and that knowing of where money is actually trying to keep you stuck rather than move you forward.
I love that you say that. That and I think also people, they have these ideas, having worked with thousands of people over the years that are going through career transition, or trying to elevate and build their skills and coaching and all the rest of it. I hear people talk about, what they would love to do and where they
Yeah.
would love to be, but I got to wait till retirement, or I can't afford to do that now. It's always the money factor is always there.
Yep.
And I just, from a coach's point of view and from my experience working with leaders and other individuals in the workplace, especially women, I will say this. Most people spend more time researching and investing in a piece of technology, a fridge or something, or a vacation than they
Yeah.
do on themselves.
Yeah.
And you and I have talked that, and you may get to this later on, that you've got to start by taking time out for yourself and investing in yourself.
Yeah.
They're waiting for everybody else. You're waiting for your company to invest in you. You're waiting till you can, you're not willing to spend the time, invest time. That's a big one. You
Yeah.
watch your show. If you're watching TV 2 or 3 hours a night, you got
Yep.
time. You'll sit around doing whatever that looks like, but you're not going to do one thing for yourself to take care of you. And women are the worst.
Yeah.
Women are the worst
Definitely.
at this. They'll look after everybody else and invest time for everybody else, but won't give themselves a couple of hours a week to reflect or contemplate or even put, a couple of $100 into, or even $1,000 into themselves.
Yeah.
And so
Definitely.
let's expand on the little by little. Like, you don't have to make the big change, but you have to do
Yes.
there's little deposits that you make
Oh, I
into the
love that.
bank account of
Yeah.
yourself as you go along,
Yeah.
because most of us are running on depleted bank accounts that are in overdraft.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. You sort of started talking about exactly what I was thinking. So now we're in sync. What I started to realize when I made the transition from corporate to doing what I do now is it doesn't have to be this like massive overnight leap. And most of us have been conditioned, well, if you're going to do it, you might as well jump and take the leap. And that is not what would feel safe for me. And so I remember when I was making the transition, I knew my intuition was telling me you're not supposed to do this marketing thing anymore, but I didn't know how to do it. And I remember having lunch with one of my mentors, and she said to me, well, Jen, why don't you just like take a contract role and not just don't go and get a full-time job again, take a contract. And I said, oh, well, that feels like a yes in my body because it feels a lot easier to me than going all in and just trying to make money on doing my passion and putting so much pressure on myself. And so I started slowly moving away from the energy I was giving to marketing. And I started spending more time intentionally building Pause and Expand and doing readings for people and then deciding if I wanted to charge money. And the biggest question I started to think about is like, if I were to stay in marketing right now, what is that going to cost me? Like emotionally, what is it going to cost me? Versus financially. Yes, I'll have my six figures. Yes, I'll have my benefits. Yes, I'll have my fancy car. But what's weird is it's going to cost me something even bigger on the other side. And that's going to be my happiness and my sense of purpose and my sense of knowing what I'm here to do on this planet. And so it's really about like money is very practical, but you also have to realize that if you're listening to this and hearing me and Sandra talk and realizing, wow, there's something here, your intuition is saying something to you. So it takes time to listen to it because you're probably being guided slowly in a different direction.
I would also like to talk about the money aspect of it, because I heard you say something I thought was really interesting.
Mm.
Deciding to charge for my service.
Oh, wow.
For
Yeah.
a lot of people, that's interpreted as my service. Am I worth somebody paying me money
Yeah.
or enough for? That's the other. I'm always amazed how people will go to organizations, work for the organization, fight for, as whether they're a salesperson, a consultant, or whatever they work in. They know the value of the service,
Yeah.
and they're happy to fight for that, or define what that means for the customer and have that conversation. But when it comes to themselves,
Yeah.
they'll charge. They'll feel embarrassed talking about money, or is my is my service worth it, or oh my
Yeah.
God, undercharge? So let's talk a little bit about that, and maybe you can explain your journey around that.
Yeah. I mean, this is such a big, we could do a whole podcast separately on this
Oh
because I think it's
yes.
so important. When we started to charge for our services, I remember I was working at Wattpad at the time in a marketing role, and they asked us during COVID to do sound baths and meditations for the people that worked there. And I just was like, oh, I'm so excited. People actually want me to do this. And so I said, yeah, of course I'll do it. And I started setting up a Slack channel, and I had people come into the room, and a lot of people started coming. And there was a moment where Steve and I had this aha moment where we realized, wait, this is actually a valuable service. And I feel like we could probably create something and start to charge for this. And that's how Pause and Expand was created. And I remember going to the HR person that was a friend of mine and someone I trusted. And I was like, look, I love that you want me to do this work, but it's actually outside the scope of my job. And so, how would you feel if I created a different company and I started to charge you separately for this? And she's like, oh my gosh, I was waiting for you to ask me that. I'm like, well, why didn't anyone tell me? And so, it takes that ability to put yourself out there. Similarly, like with my one on one coaching I do, I started doing things for free because I was so worried that I didn't have any value and they wouldn't get what they wanted from my services. And now I'm at a price point where I feel really comfortable because I know that what I bring to the table is incredibly valuable. And I can't remember who told me this. Maybe I made it up. I have no idea. But I was thinking one day about how when you go to the dentist, right? And you have a root canal or something wrong. All you want is the dentist to fix you. You're like, I don't care how much this costs, just make it go
Exactly.
away. Help me to make this go away. And you'll just pay. You don't sit there and go, can you break down how many hours you worked on my tooth? And I just want to see the breakdown of how much you're charging me. You'll just pay for it because that's how valuable it is to you. Your services are worth probably the same amount, but it's harder to quantify because it's emotional if you're a coach, or it's if you're not providing a physical service, it's hard to put a value on that, but it's equally as valuable. So keep it in mind when any of us are trying to charge is think about the outcome of the value that someone is getting from what you do. It's worth something.
I think that is so brilliant. And with our coaching, we clients will say, "Oh my God, that's so expensive,"
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you know, it's it's not about it. Of course, you've got to build a relationship, spend time with people, but it's what the outcomes look like. What are you getting
Yeah.
out of this? What are you going to
Yes.
walk away?
Yeah.
I always say to clients, imagine the one, two, three, or four things that you want to walk away with at the end of your 6 months. What does that look like? And
Yeah.
then, and I think with your, why do people come to you? Any service that
Yeah.
I want people to feel much more confidence in
Yes.
what they're bringing to the table. And if you
Yeah.
don't feel it, I think confidence is everything. If you don't feel the confidence, they're not going to feel the confidence in your service also. And that's
Totally.
important. So number four, money's a bit,
Number four.
I'd like to do one just on money because I think
I
money's
know
like
we need to come
the
back to this because
biggest
I have so many other
blocker.
things to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Such a big block. Okay.
Yeah.
Number four seems really simple, but it's actually very hard for myself as well, is creating conditions for stillness. And what I am learning about my intuition is that the quieter that I can get to really listen to what it's telling me, the louder it actually speaks. Because logic works in the distraction, right? So if you have 20 things you need to do today, you will go through your to-do list and you'll rank, well, this is most important and that's most important because cause and effect is telling you, well, I actually have to get this done because there's a deadline. Then I'll go to the next thing. And most people are living on a to-do list. That's how they live their lives, is wake up, make the to-do list, accomplish, go to sleep, rinse and repeat, do it the next day. And your intuition doesn't work like that, right? Your intuition is this quieter voice underneath all of that that probably has you realizing, wow, you're doing like way too many things. You have 2 things to do today, and then go for a walk and actually enjoy yourself, because you're going to feel more energy on the other side. And so what I'll say to people is, you have to be able to get still. You have to be able to slow down. You have to be able to find your way and recognize that that's how your intuition wants to work through you, not doing, multitasking 10 things at the same time.
I think you described most of my career.
Mine too. That's why I know it. That's exactly
The
why I know it.
I can't tell you and I'm still learning this lesson. So, and I'm working on my meditation, I walk,
Yeah.
but I get into this frenzy of the to-do list and the things, and I know it's not healthy. It's not healthy for me, but it's stopping me because I sometimes accomplish my biggest successes in these moments
Yeah.
of, it just happens and I do it, and I can sit back and go, wow, this is something I'm walking away from my day with I'm bringing it in my heart. It feels so good.
Yes.
And other
Yeah.
days I'm just drained because, oh, I only did half my list. Can you just how do you how do you do this?
Yeah.
Like, what are give me some steps on how
Yeah.
I change this horrible habit that I have, or that I go
Yeah.
back to because it's a behavior that's ingrained.
Well, I mean, if I'm being completely honest, I'm also trying to change it too. Because if you were to talk to Steve, if he were to come on this podcast right now and talk to us, he would say, wow, Jen spends like most of her day trying to get her to do list done. And then she wakes up and feels overwhelmed. And then we have to have a talk, and we have to, talk ourselves off the bridge and come back to our place of calm. And what I realize in this voice of, ultimately it's the critic, right? It's the voice of us that's saying, Sandra, Jennifer, if you don't get this done, you're going to be a failure and you're not going to be able to be successful in the world. There is a rationalization that slowing down and stillness does not have to look the same for each person. So I know you love to go walking. I know that that's
Yes.
something that you love to do, that just, and I've heard Patricia say it. I've heard Kirsten say it. Sandra needs to go for her walk, or else she's going to be more chaotic than not, right? Same
Yeah.
for me. Like, I go to the gym. We both have a practice of exercise. I go to the gym. I do yoga. I know those things bring me back into some state of equilibrium in my body. And so it doesn't have to look like this crazy 20-minute breath work, sound bath, meditation practice, but you do need to find your own rhythm to slow down, right? So, one of the things I say to people when they're learning to quote unquote meditate is, go and meditate when you're brushing your teeth. You take 2 to 3 minutes, according to your dentist, to brush your teeth, floss, do all your stuff. Why don't you close your eyes when you're doing that and actually tune into a moment of gratitude, something that you realized about yourself today, one thing you need to do for the day ahead? That's stillness, right? That's actually slowing down, but we're putting these conditions on what it has to look like. And then I hear all these women saying, well, I don't have time. I have kids. I have to manage the household. I have to go to the grocery store. I have to do my job. And that's what causes that voice to get louder and go, yeah, you're right. Like, you need to keep doing this. And we spiral out of control, right?
And and it doesn't, and we always talk about the physical well-being, for many of us, but I think about one good friend of mine, she knits. And
Yes.
so that's her, when she knits, she has her best ideas. Patricia um, is a painter. She does paint by
Yeah.
numbers. And
Beautiful.
she said, it's just something that brings her great peace
Yeah.
and helps her think. So it doesn't have to be the yoga, the walking, or the
Totally.
physical activity. It could be, it could be, as Patricia says, mine's paint by numbers. Um,
Love it.
that moment. I have a friend who she has a bath every night, She has one of those big, huge, gigantic, she fills it up, she puts music on, and that's
Yeah.
her piece, and that's where she gets to organize and think about. So we always think it has to be these grand gestures that
Yeah.
are, or or you're doing something super physical. So I like that. But what if we don't do something that brings joy to our heart, gives us a moment of peace, and we just go grocery shopping and we work and we go through
Yeah.
our to-do list? What we're doing is, if you think about that emotional bank account, we
Yeah.
get into the deficit, and somewhere along the line you are going to have to pay interest on that overdraft.
Yep. Oh my
And
gosh, I'm taking this line. It's brilliant what you're saying. It's just
uh,
incredible. Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
so your emotional capital is when it's depleted, and I've learned this through hard. I can talk about this, of my what's happened to me physically, mentally, emotionally, and then not being able to make a decision on whether, when I do go to the grocery store, should I buy a can of mushroom soup or should I buy a can of tomatoes? Just absolutely the overwhelm becomes, it depletes every part of your life.
Yeah.
And I just feel that if somebody can stop for a moment, and you got 24 hours a day, and if you can say, I want to watch that show, or I want to knit, or I want to go for a walk,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to be for a long period of time. I feel, because I went through something so horrendous in a space of 3 years, that physically, hurt my body, but it also hurt everybody around me as well, to watch me go
Yeah.
through this.
Yeah.
You have to make those changes, or you're going to pay the price. The other thing I noticed with women, and I don't know if you've noticed this as well, I'm at an age and stage where a lot of my friends, after their kids went away to university, they started making big changes in their life
Oh yeah.
because they'd hit the wall. I had
Yep.
a lot of friends who left marriages, who
Yep.
made drastic, changes, and it was a surprise to everybody. But the whole thing was that it wasn't really a surprise, because they'd been
Yeah.
living with all this pain, where they,
Yeah.
for so many years. It seemed like it happened in a short period of time, but it had been building for so long. Do you have any
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
I mean, this is exactly what I'm seeing over and over, right? We're running retreats in Sedona now, and most of the women that are coming are at, I call these moments inflection points, and they're the
Oh,
moments that the universe says to you, stop, you're not going in the right way, and we gotta shake your life up a bit here and get you back on path. And so what you're describing is one of those inflection points. I have 3 women coming to Sedona in 2 weeks from now to explore this exact topic. And what happens is you have this higher, wiser version of you that's helping guide you on your path. That's where your intuition is connected. When you when you aren't listening, sometimes the universe has to smack you over the head, like we've talked about, and wake you up. And so those moments that we've been holding on to, like, I have to stay in this marriage, I have to take care of my kids till they go to university, when that ends, we get this well of emotion that comes up of like, what am I doing with my life? What do I need to do differently? How am I showing up? And those are what I call the inflection points, because oftentimes it's like, if you're walking down a road, you're going to hit that fork in the road and go, well, which way are you going to choose? Are you going to keep going down the same path and live your life the same way? Or are you going to make a new choice and go in a different direction? And so I love those moments as much as I hate them, right? When I
yeah.
left my corporate career, I was like, I hate this. I hate what's happening to me right now. And yet, your intuition is the loudest then, because it's going, just trust me. I will guide you if you just keep following the steps. So
Wow.
good.
So good. So, your fifth point on this.
Yeah. This is a big one. This is about taking your no seriously. And, Sandra and I have talked about this so much, but I think this is the biggest thing that often stops us from going running the full marathon, right? It's like we run half the race and then we're like, oh, I'm going to stop. I can't finish. But the truth is that your logic is always going to tell you, nope, doesn't make sense. Nope, that doesn't have an outcome. Nope, we don't know where we're going, so turn back. but your intuition is always going to guide you. And sometimes it feels foggy. So we really have to start to honor the part of us that feels in our body, actually, that's a no. So I'll always say, feel what your yes is, feel what your no is. If you don't have a full yes, it's a no until you get more information. And a lot of us are just wavering on the in between because we're not following the full yes. And we have to then, if we follow the full yes, that means we have to take our no's seriously.
If it's not a full yes, then it is a no
Yeah.
until we have the right. That is,
I just got full chills in my body. See, this is me and
oh,
Sandra are in channel right now. For anyone
oh,
listening, if you've ever wondered what it means to be in your channel, this is what it means because we're just flowing. We haven't
oh,
stopped this recording this entire time. Like, this is it.
that to me was wow. I,
Yeah.
it's really funny. I've spent most of my life having really good intuition, but watching other people struggle, and especially in, people that have come to me and said, this job's not working out. They take a job, they go into the job, and one of
Yeah.
my questions used to be, or they've just been let go from that job. So they're coming to me because they've been let go or beforehand. Like I'm not, I've been there 8 months, 9 months. I'm not feeling it. I
Yeah.
usually say, take me back to the interview. What were the
Mm,
red flags in that
mm,
interview in
mm.
that
Yeah.
moment?
Yeah.
And through the process to a person, and I I tell you no lies, to a
Yeah.
person there was always a red flag.
Yeah.
However so small, there was always a little insight into what it was going to be like when they take that job, or what that boss was going to be like, or what that culture of that organization was going to be like.
Yeah.
And I have always decided my career based on how I would feel. It was I
Yeah.
never expected to make a lot of money, and
Yeah.
so I was always, for me, I am going to follow my career, and it's going to be, how do I feel? How does that
Yeah.
person make me feel? Now, I'm not
Yeah.
saying I didn't make mistakes, but after I went through this craziness of everything happening in grief and all the rest of it, and we started up this business, we were invited by an organization that we knew really well, who knew that we were starting up the business, to meet with the CEO. And he was flying in to meet with us. And we were sitting around the table, nice guy, talking about how we could partner. And at one point, he said, guys, why don't we could buy you, or you could come just join us. And I'm
Yeah.
sitting there, and Patricia and Kirsten on either side of me, and he's on the other side of the table. And I don't know what it was, but it was a physical reaction. I went, no.
Wow.
And everybody, including the CEO, started laughing and goes, I take it that's not something you're interested in. But it was such a physical response in
Yeah.
my intuition in that moment. Yet I see
Yeah.
so many people tell me they had the insight, but they didn't, they were fearful of
Yeah.
saying no.
Yeah.
Whether it be to something in their personal life or in their career. I use career because it's a big part of my life.
Yeah.
But I love what you just said.
Yeah.
If you haven't got a full yes, why don't we just, take a chance to say, can I think about this? You don't have to
Exactly.
say no right there. You just have to pause. Well,
Yeah.
your business, pause and expand. You just, you have to pause and just
Yeah.
say, can you give me a couple of days or another
Yeah.
month to think about this
Yeah.
before you make a decision? And we're
Yeah.
so afraid of not immediately answering.
Yeah.
Do you think that's part of the problem?
100% it is. But also look at the world we are creating right now with AI, right? If you have a question that you need answered, you will type it into ChatGPT or Claude AI or whatever program you're using, and you will get an immediate answer. And most of the time, one of those chats is going, great question, Jennifer. I love this point of view. Let me help you guide you to the answer. And so it's actually doing a disservice to the humanness, which is the part of our human experience, which is sometimes we don't always know, right? Your intuition is probably guiding you, but sometimes we have to take a moment and go, wait, what is actually happening here? Let me just look at the puzzle pieces and see if I can figure out what might be going on before making a decision and then realizing you've ended up in the wrong room or wrong job or wrong marriage or whatever that is for longer than you'd actually like to, because you're not allowing yourself to really follow that yes. And people will always ask me, okay, well, what if I don't have the yes? Wait, you don't need to say yes right away or no right away. You can just give it time, because that's what the human experience is about. It's about experimenting, growing, trying things out. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to think your intuition is taking you in the wrong path, but it's probably not. And that's how we learn. That's how the GPS gets course corrected.
I also think that intuition is a skill set that you need to practice to
Yeah.
get confident
100%.
about. And you
Yep.
can combine it with, as I was talking to one of my clients the other day, he goes, oh, I'm a fact and stats guy. And I said, I get all that, but what you need is that human side of
Yeah.
things. And that's why you're coming to us right now. You got the facts and stats all down. That's your secret sauce.
Yeah.
But I do think, and I don't know if I'm going to articulate this right, is that we grow up in families that hand us our belief systems in a box.
Yep. Yep.
and
Definitely.
kind of tell us that this is the way to think, and yeah, smile at the stranger, all of these different. And then you go into the educational system, which like screws you up completely as far as I'm
Yep.
concerned.
Yep.
And you have to follow everybody there, because God forbid you should be a little bit different and outside the box.
Yeah.
And then you go into the corporate world, which is worse,
Yeah.
for following the rules. And you better be part of the culture. You can't think outside the culture or be
Yes.
different outside
Exactly.
the culture. So
Yep.
no wonder we're a bunch of, and now we've got AI telling us what we
Yep.
should be thinking and what we should be saying and how we should write that email and, show up and react. And we've got, when, that's why all of like, and I just want to review all of the things that you've just said here, the
Mhm.
things that are important. And there's probably a million things more, but your intuition being, I think part of it is maybe asking you to become someone new,
Yeah.
just not just do something new, but really think about how you become that person, right? And you will be losing your identity, but giving yourself that opportunity to investigate and to start researching and start using your intuition and maybe making those changes little by little, and then learning that you're reading your body as information, like how are we feeling, how are it's you can feel that. And then money, noticing when you're
Money.
everything, yeah, like everything you say and do has, well, will I make money, or will I lose money, or
Yeah.
will this make me more money? I mean, so many people will go into promotions and go, yeah, well, I'm making more money, and my family needs more money, but they're not asking, will I be happier? Will I,
Yep. Exactly.
they're not asking all those other questions, and then create conditions for stillness, and then take no seriously.
Yeah.
These are things that are very practical and things that you can apply every single day and start incorporating little by little. And remember, as we talked about, that emotional bank account. And I
Yeah.
would suggest that everybody today think about, what's my emotional bank account look like?
Yes. Yes.
Now,
Yes.
do you have any thoughts about what an emotional bank account, what would be the sort of the indicators and
Yeah.
benchmarks of an
Yeah.
emotional bank account? I haven't thought about it, but do you have any
It's
thoughts?
it's a great question. I mean, here the way that I think about this is if you imagine you've got this, battery or this bank account every day, and every day you're getting, $10 allowance to put into that energetic bank account. How are you going to spend that $10? Who are the people? What are you going to do? What are you not going to do? Which is equally as important a question. but really being discerning. We go through this experience in our retreats called an energy audit. And basically it looks at where your energy is going that's making you better person, better decisions, more connected to the people around you, more in service to what you love to do. And where are the places that you're actually depleting your energy? Where are you giving your power away? Where are you saying yes when you should be saying no? And so if you can literally map that out like you would when you're
Or
doing
delaying the no, delaying
yes,
till you know.
exactly. Yes. And when you can map that out the way, I mean, we're all doing taxes. So look at where your money goes every year, right? Do the same thing with your energy. You're going to change your life because you're
Oh.
going to start to realize, wow, I'm spending a lot of money in places that do not bring me back the return on investment. And your energy is the most powerful currency that you have. So you better be thinking about where the investment is going.
So that is a great wisdom moment. The energy bank
Yeah.
account, the
Yeah.
emotional bank account, and where are you spending your time?
Yeah.
Oh, Jennifer, I can't wait to
When are we doing this again? I
talk
need to.
more. Yeah, I
I,
just feel like there's so much more that we can talk about, and I feel like there's so much. I have so much to learn. I feel, I'm in the first year university of, reconditioning my thinking
yeah.
and being able to not just bring my intuition in because I'm bringing my intuition in, but learning to actually use it as a skill
Trust.
set in
Yeah.
my decision making through transition and through every life decision. So thank you for your wisdom,
My pleasure.
and I look forward to having you on as a guest again. Thank you.
Can't wait. Thank you, Sandra.
We are at a crucial juncture in history, and our equality is not a nice to have. It is now beyond negotiation. This is our future, our fight.
This episode of Women on Wisdom is sponsored by TalentWise Collective, a global talent development company that curates solutions for your organization's needs and culture. Please note that the opinions and comments of the guests or hosts may not align with TalentWise Collective. If you are interested in having Sandra speak at an event, or wish to reach out for any other inquiries, you can connect through our email at connecttwc@talentwisecollective.com. That is connecttwc@talentwisecollective.com. Thank you.